Happy January, everyone. I'm Liam, and today we are taking a look at the very glossy Calendar of Many Adventures by Loki Battlemats and Shadowdark by the Arcane Library. In the past few days, I read through the Shadowdark Player Quickstart, the Shadowdark Game Master Quickstart, the Shadowdark Solo Gameplay Rules, and the Unquiet Night Adventure PDF from Loki Battlemats. And that was, for me, frankly, a lot to absorb. Because this is my first read of Shadowdark, and a lot of you, my fellow travelers, are new or newly returning to tabletop role-playing after sometimes decades-long hiatuses. I want to just quickly mention 7 features of Shadowdark that stood out to me, and especially those that contrast with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and give folks who might know better a chance to correct me if I'm wrong about these. 1. Magic. We don't have to deal in Shadowdark with slots and memorizing spells and forgetting spells after we use them like we do in 5th edition. In Shadowdark, if you know a spell, you can cast it as much as you like until you fail or have a mishap, and then you'll regain the ability to cast that spell after you rest if you're a mage, or do penance of some sort if you're a priest. 2. Experience comes from acquiring treasure and boons during an adventure rather than from killing things. 3. We don't worry so much about specific measurements for distances. Shadowdark categorizes distances as close, near, and far. 4. D&D has a multitude of proficiencies and specific types of activities. In Shadowdark, if there's a reasonable chance a character would know how to do a thing based on their background, for example, they will generally just succeed at that type of thing. 5. Dark vision is right out. Only monsters can see in the dark. Adventurers better have a lit torch or things get deadly fast. 6. Inventory. Inventory is managed using a slot-based system, which is different than the 2 encumbered systems I've seen used in Dungeons & Dragons. The one where you track the precise weight of everything, and the other where you just don't bother. 7. Light. In normal Shadowdark play, you'd set a timer, and your torch burns out after 1 real-life hour. In SoloDark, the solo rules, we forego that, and a torch lasts for 10 rounds. Those are the big ones to me. There are some other details that differ from Dungeons & Dragons, like the difficulty checks for easy, normal, and hard, but I'll point those out when they come up. If this is your first tabletop role-playing game, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. How accessible or daunting is this for you? I've heard a lot of TTRPG veterans say that Shadowdark is a better place to start than D&D, but I think if this was my first tabletop role-playing game, I'd be pretty overwhelmed. And that's just the rules. We have the adventure itself to worry about as well. So let's take a look at that. The first thing I did with my Game Master hat on was to skim read the Unquiet Night and realize I needed or wanted to do 3 things. 1, convert the adventure from D&D 5e to Shadowdark. 2, scale it down from level 5 to 7 adventurers to level 1. We don't have to do that. We could roll up some level 5 characters, but having never played Shadowdark myself, I'd rather start at level 1. Especially since I'm going to be soloing a party of 4 different characters, it'll be easier on me as a player if I scale down the complexity. And finally, 3, there are some non-combat moments in the adventure that I want to prep for, and I'll show you what I mean. But first, converting from 5e, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons to Shadowdark. There are 3 things I took note of. The first one is difficulty checks. The numbers are slightly different here between 5e and Shadowdark. So I made a little conversion chart for myself. So for example, when the calendar says it takes a DC 25 perception check to tell a doppelganger from the real person, I can see that that's meant to be an extremely hard thing to do. And in Shadowdark, that'd be a check against a difficulty of 18. Cool. The second thing I need to deal with is short rests. The adventure says that between ghostly visitations, characters can take a short rest. In 5e terms, that would mean our level 1 characters would get a little bit of health back. Specifically, they'd be able to roll 1 hit die plus their constitution modifier. So a Shadowdark fighter, for example, could roll a d8, a wizard a d4, because that's their hit die. But there are no short rests in Shadowdark, only what 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons calls long rests, where you take it easy for 8 whole hours and regain everything. So instead of short rests between visitations, which Shadowdark doesn't have, I'll give every character a healing potion, at least 1, maybe 2. And the third thing I wanted to convert from 5e to Shadowdark is monsters. There is a lot going on in 5e monster stat blocks. I'm going to replace the 5e monsters with less complicated monsters from the Shadowdark Quickstart. They're in the Game Master Quickstart, I believe. And I'll choose the monsters so that I scale things down for my level 1 party and take care of that prep work at the same time. So, in Visitation 1, we'll get 3 peasants and an acolyte. I'm still going to call them Heroic Warrior and Wizard Ghosts and keep their Dreambound property and their vulnerability to radiant damage because those things are important to the adventure. But I'm only using 4 monsters here instead of the 5 in the adventure based on advice I found, not in the Quick Start guide, but in the full rule book here on page 193. How many monsters? Use the 1-to-1 monsters table to determine what level a monster should be when there is 1 of that monster per character in a combat. This will result in a combat of average difficulty. So our average party level is going to be 1. So if we have 1 level 1 monster per each character, we're good. So basically, it also says here, you can combine these levels into a different quantity of monsters. For example, a group of 4 4th level adventurers will face a combined 12 levels of monsters per average combat because if we look at the table, if your average party level is 4, give 1 level 3 monster per each character. So that'd be 4 characters times monster level 3, so that's 12 levels. So then you could theoretically take those 12 levels and divvy it up. So, for example, I thought about using 1 level 2 soldier and 1 level 2 cultist instead of the peasants and acolyte, but that just looked too deadly for my taste at this juncture. We could maybe go, the one difference here in my setup is that an acolyte is more of a healer and a cultist is more of a wizard. He does damage and this guy does healing. So we could take our level 2 guy and replace a peasant and an acolyte, and so that encounter could be 2 heroic, what do we call them, 2 heroic warriors using the peasant block and 1 heroic wizard using the cultist block. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but something like that. Either 3 peasants and an acolyte, or maybe 2 peasants and a cultist. In Visitation 2, the party faces copies of themselves, so nothing really needs to change there. They'll just get the stats of the party members themselves. In Visitation 3, I'll replace the dragon's stats with stats from the giant snake, I think. And that should do it for converting from 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which is what this adventure and what the adventures in this calendar are written for. Converting from that to Shadowdark. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything or my balance is out of whack or anything like that. Okay, that just leaves prepping for the non-combat moments. There are 4 of those that stuck out to me. The intro to the adventure and each of the lead-ins to the 3 visitations where the ghosts basically taunt and try to demoralize the players. So first, the intro. The Unquiet Night scenario is written as if the party is already a party. But this kind of scenario could be a great bonding experience, I think, for characters that are strangers to one another. So I'm choosing to use this as my party's origin story. To keep things simple, I picked 4 of the pre-generated characters from the Quickstart. Jorben Ironhelm, a dwarf fighter. Martin Rest, a human thief. Interestingly, he's a noble turned thief, so that's there's some questions there. Iraga Dragul, a half-orc priestess, I suppose, and Zaldini the Red, a goblin wizard. And I thought it would be fun to plunder the rumor table from the Game Master Quickstart to give them each a secret. So, for example, let's see. Jorben, his secret is there's a hall of golden statues beneath a well. So maybe Jordan, our former soldier, is just traveling the land, trying to find towns with wells, and then figuring out how to get beneath them to see if the, ancient hall of dwarven golden statues is there. What's Martin, our thief's secret? 3 thieves just pulled off a gemstone heist nearby. Was Martin involved? Is he just interested? Who knows? If he was involved, where are the other 2 thieves? Iraga Dragul, secret. The Church of St. Taragnes will pay for the return of a relic, and she happens to serve St. Taragnes, so that may be her secret mission. And perhaps the blade itself here in the adventure, the Dawn Blade, the Lucis Blade. Maybe that's the relic they're looking for. And last but not least, Zaldini, the Goblin Wizard. His background is wanted, so I chose the secret. The local Goblin King has placed a 2,000 gold piece bounty on Zaldini's head. So in my setup, each character winds up at this ruined bothy for their own reasons, but by the end of things, hopefully, they're a team. Or maybe they've turned on each other. We shall see. That's my prep for the intro. Next, Visitation 1. To be honest, I was initially very annoyed by this in the adventure. The adventure says these heroes may be well known. He's talking about the heroes that appear, the ghostly heroes. These ghostly heroes may be well known to the characters, being figures from history and legend. For each ghost, present a DC 20 history check. So that's gonna be a hard difficulty. So in Shadowdark terms, that's 15. So a DC 15 history check will reveal key parts of their story. This will give advantage to attacks against that ghost. So great. As a game master, I need to come up with who these guys are and connect them to epic stories in my world, which for me doesn't exist. So I was just going to skip it. But I decided instead to go with it and made some random tables. So, for example, let's see. I've got a how did they die table. And we can roll on this thing. Let's see. So we're in the adventure. Maybe we make the check and we determine, hey, that's Sir Tom the Egregious, and he tripped and punctured his spleen. And so I don't know. And the other part, really, I heard they were betrayed by their hireling after their torch ran out. So that kind of thing. So, and I don't know, how does that give you advantage? Maybe ghosts are particularly sensitive to attacks or taunts that involve how they died. That's what I'm going with. Mine are meant to be comical. You may discover I have a hard time taking myself seriously. Everything eventually turns into Monty Python for me. Maybe that works for you, maybe not. But whatever theme or genre appeals to you, I bet you could come up with your own tables that can then generate something interesting here. The trick with all of this is you don't need to know everything. And that's one of my favorite parts of solo RPGing, is that you can discover the world through your characters. There's no pressure on you as a game master that you should already know all this stuff. The idea that the characters know more about the world than I do really rather tickles me. Okay. That's Visitation 1. Visitation 2, these are the doppelgangers that mimic the party. Back in the adventure hook section of the adventure, it says one of the things the adventure can be used for is to hold a mirror to certain traits or behaviors of the characters that are present. That gave me comical inspiration for another table, my What Do They Know About You table. So, for example, one of the doppelgangers may say that, the guy who's pretending to be Martin, what did I get? You have a thing for one of the other characters' races. So we'd roll a three-sided die, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the second one, and that's a half orc. So one of the doppelgangers says, "Yeah, I know. You've got a thing for half orcs, don't you?" So, yeah, that's the idea. We'll see how that plays out. This may be just, this may not work at all, or it might be delightful. Who knows? Visitation 3 is the ghost trying to scare the players about the dragon. And my plan is to just reuse some of the earlier tables if anyone is still alive. So that is my setup. I think I'm ready to go. If this felt like work rather than play, I want to encourage you to think about this prep work as play also. It's part of the hobby, and even though we didn't role play or fight anything or loot any treasure hoards, we're setting the stage for all of that and getting everything in place. When next we play, we'll dig into the adventure itself, but I wanted to let this session 0 sit and marinate, so to speak, because I'm worried it's a lot for folks who are new to this. So let me know, was this helpful and inspiring at all? Are you looking forward to giving it a go, or does it all feel like too much trouble? If it feels like too much, don't bail just yet. It gets easier and more fun the more you do it. And I think the Cairn rule set and Hexplorers Guide series will be more pick-up and playable than this feels right now. So, all right, friends, that'll do it for today. I'll see you again soon. Until then, keep your lanterns lit and your hearts warm. Thanks for watching.